Welcome back to the Superhero Institute. In today's lesson, I'm going to teach you how to give criticism. And I'm going to teach it to you in a way where it'll actually be heard by the other person. And in advance, I'd like to apologize for the mess behind me. We're having a baby and our crib just got delivered, and I haven't put it together yet. It's kind of a mess in here, but don't let that distract you from the lesson. Let's go! All right, so let's say you're a leader, because you are, right? Well, there's going to come a point where you're going to have to give someone some bad news. Maybe they didn't do something that you've been expecting. Maybe they just totally let you down in one way or another. Maybe their attitude is messed up. There could be all number of different reasons why you're going to have to provide some sort of corrective action to someone. This could be in your relationship. It could even be to your boss. So this extends in every which direction, but you're going to have to give some sort of criticism. And the tough part about criticism is very few people like to be criticized. So one of the big mistakes people tend to make is that their first way of offering up this criticism is to frame it as a direct statement, something along the lines of, you always this, or I noticed that you do this, that, and the other thing, or you didn't do this assignment that I asked you, and so on and so forth. The problem with this is that when you use a you statement like that, people are going to naturally get defensive because you are levying a direct criticism towards them. And they're unlikely to hear you as well as if you chose an alternative route. Now, by now, you probably have heard the expression or the advice that you should use I and we and me statements instead of you statements. And that's really the first part of this advice, is that when giving criticism, it is often best to frame it in terms of how it made you feel, how it makes you think, how it impacts your goals. And that way you are stating something from your own perspective, from your own opinion, and it cannot actually be wrong because it's subjective. And it can be very helpful because it also doesn't put someone on the defensive. But the second part, and this is the part that actually makes this really work, it's the part that makes it really valuable, is that you actually have to create the conditions where you allow for the other person to step up and become the hero. Let me give you an example. Let's say that on your team, you have a teammate that's part of your team. And this teammate comes to you and they let you know that one of your colleagues, or maybe even your boss, tends to steamroll them, and they don't feel that they can actually speak up or provide their ideas and opinions, right? So how this normally would go is that you might go to your colleague or your peer or your boss, and you would say, hey, listen, when a person on my team tries to talk, you always talk over them, and you don't listen to them, and they don't feel heard, and this, that, and the other thing, right? What's naturally going to happen from this is that the person that you approach with something like that and that sort of way of conveying that information is likely going to get defensive. They're going to say, no, I don't, I always, and they never step up and yada, yada, and they're going to defend themselves because it's an attack on their ego. So they're going to naturally go into that defense mode. By contrast, if you're to instead frame it in such a way where you're going to talk about what your goals are, number one, and number two, you give them the opportunity, you give them a very specific concrete action that they can take that would make them the hero in this story, you'll have a lot more success. So look at this one. What if you were to say, hey, listen, I'm trying to develop this team member of mine, and I think that they're really brilliant. I think that they're really great. And it's important that we create the kind of environment for them where they feel free to speak up and contribute their ideas. I've been working really, really hard on it. I noticed that you're always very passionate when we're in meetings. I was wondering if you could do me a favor for, the next 5 or 10 meetings so that I can work on this with this employee on their willingness to speak up and kind of come out of their shell. If you could ask them for their opinion and then let them really just get it out, don't offer anything, just say, great, thanks, and just let them get it out there. I think that that would go a long way in building morale, and it would help me as I'm working to develop this team member. Can you do that for me? And it's always important, I think, to ask them and have them confirm that they understand what you're talking about and they're willing to do such a thing. Now, in that particular scenario, what you've just done is you've given this other colleague, your boss, your whatever, the opportunity to do something that's really helpful for you. And people, by and large, tend to want to be helpful. And you've given specific and concrete actions, and you've talked about why and why it's important and how it makes you feel, and all number of different things embedded in the way that you frame that. And that's a lot more likely to get the result you're looking for than if you say, hey, you always steamroll my teammate, and I wish you would just shut the hell up. It's not going to work as well, even if you say it in less flowery language than that. So I would instruct or advise that if you have to give criticism, whether it be to your spouse, whether it be to your colleague, whether it be to one of your team members that you're superior to, or somebody that you report to, it's important to remember that nobody wants to be in the wrong. Nobody wants to think that they screwed up, and nobody wants to have their ego damaged. I'm not telling you shouldn't be real with people. I'm not telling you shouldn't be honest with people. What I'm telling you is you can be honest with someone while framing things in a way where the outcome that you're looking for has a higher likelihood of occurring. And you do that by being gentle with people and giving them the opportunity to step up and be their best selves. Try this out. Let me know how it goes. Leave a comment on this video. Do me a favor also, hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, because every week I'm going to be putting out tips, some of them longer, some of them shorter, some of them really practical, and some of them much more complex. So I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for attending this lesson at the Superhero Institute.